Hello to anyone watching. I had looked around online and could not find any guides on how to install these, so I thought I would take a stab at doing it myself and be the helpful internet guy. These are just a random set of aluminum CNC milled forward controls for the Rebel 1100 DCT specifically. They seem pretty high quality. It's all very sturdy, like clear-cut metal. One thing I do like is that the foot pegs on them are actually quite a bit larger than the stock ones, as you can see here. Like a fair amount of room. That was an issue I had with the stock ones. It's just that I felt that they were very small and kind of annoying to get to, as well as the position was a bit iffy for someone as tall as myself. So I thought I would spring for one of these eBay kits and see how it turned out. These specific ones, after taxes, I think was around $580, which was a bit more than I would have liked to spend, but if it works out and it works well, then I'm not too worried about it. The one downside being just from eBay and shipped from China, the instructions are rather lacking. You can see it kind of just gives you a diagram of how the pieces fit together, not so much how to install them on the bike. But it's a fairly straightforward job. You can only really go one place, so as long as I follow the instructions on how they go together, it should go well. As you can see, it's a pretty complete set. Comes with both of the brackets for either side, some metal spacers, the brake cable linkage, 2 foot pegs, obviously, brake lever, also a fair bit bigger than the stock one, as you can see here, a good bit bigger. Should be a little easier to use. Also comes with a bag of necessary screws, some more spacers, and a different brake cable. I imagine it's just longer, that will run to plug and play on the bike itself. So the first thing we need to do is remove the foot pegs and some of this outer covering stuff, mainly so we can get to this bolt back here. It's fairly easy. These are non-stock foot pegs that I had tried on just from Amazon. I didn't realize at the time that they don't exactly fit, so I kind of just made them fit, but the process of taking them off is still the same. There's a small cotter pin down here. You just kind of bend that out of the way, and you can then push the pin out, and then the foot peg comes right off. On the stock ones, there's actually a little spring here that kind of helps the return action for when it's up or down. So that's not there right now, so you'll have to move that, but it's extremely easy to get out, so you shouldn't be too worried. These 2 screws right here and these 2 up here are all 5mm to get out. These don't need to come out because they're not really connected to the plastic housing. These ones in the back are 8mm, and you can see they're kind of torqued down to a specific size. I don't know what the actual foot-pounds is, however. Okay, after you get the screws out, you're going to have to disconnect some of the back hardware here, which I've already done in the case of mine. You've got a little return spring and sensor for pressing the brake lever, which mainly just needs to have this plug undone. It does have these clips on all 4 sides, which can make it a little difficult to get out, but it's doable. And then on the back of this brake cylinder, there's 2 screws and a metal plate that you can get out. Those are also 8mm. So once you get those out, you can kind of move this to the side a little bit, and this pin is mounted to the bottom of the brake lever with a small cotter pin and just a pin with a square backing that prevents it from rotating. A quick note, the new foot pegs don't actually reuse this old sensor switch that's built into the side of the brake frame. Comes with what's called a banjo bolt. It's basically a pressure sensitive switch that will go in the back of your master cylinder here. Unfortunately, that does mean you need to drain the brakes so that you can kind of put this in the end of your brake cylinder and then wire up to the OEM switch so that your brake light will turn on correctly. So next day, I've got the banjo bolt installed here, as you can see. Pretty straightforward process. Just kind of unscrew the old one, put on the new one, make sure everything is nice and tight. This brake linkage here comes with the kit and will go on the end of this bolt, which originally has this clip attached to it. It can be a little difficult to get off. The easiest way that I found was to use a wrench to hold this nut in place, and then just kind of have a small screwdriver or something of the sort, and just kind of wedge it in there so you can twist it and get it to break, because it'll be on there pretty tight. This piece here is pretty much done. Once you have that set up, then you'll be attaching it to this main bracket bit that is going to be going on the outside. One thing to note, that it does have a mounting bolt bracket that will go like this on the back of the master cylinder, and then attached to the larger bracket itself. So as you can see, I've got the master cylinder bracket installed there. Goes together pretty well. Comes with a couple of lock nuts that shouldn't back off any vibrations or anything. Next up is installing the back of the plate to the original mounting point. One thing to note is that the set comes with 2 of these offsets. The thin will go on your right side, so make sure you've got the thinner one over here, or you probably run into some issues further on. So the front end of the brake assembly all kind of goes through this this hole here, and we'll end up going to where this bolt is. Don't mistake them, not the same bolt. And this is a 14 millimeter. It has a nut on the back that is also 14 millimeter. It can be pretty tough to get off. Make sure that you use a 6-sided socket and not a 12-sided socket, as the 12-sided one I had started trying to round off on the other end. I ended up having to use a breaker bar, but hit it with a little WD-40 and get the nut off, and it'll pop out pretty easily. The new brake lever attaches to the brake linkage with just a little screw, and then there's a long bar and some spacer washers that will kind of connect the foot pegs and brake lever and everything, and kind of like line it all up with that hole. You do have to reuse the original nut from the other side of that long bolt, so don't round that off or ruin it or anything like that, or you'll be cursing yourself. So a quick mock-up of how the brake assembly and pedal is supposed to go together. The foot peg itself comes apart. There's a little bolt and screw. It's got a metal shim in there, and the long screw goes through the base of the foot peg, and this will fit into a slot on the inside of the bracket here. And on the other side of that, you've got a small metal washer here, and then the brake lever itself, and this is the small hole that will connect to the linkage right there with that little screw. On the other side of that is a large spacer. Both of these have little ridges on the inside, and those are faced towards the washer so they kind of less friction. And then from the original bolt, there's a spacer here that goes right in between the outside of this and there. It will probably fall out whenever you take out that screw. And then on the other end, on the other side of the bike, you've got just a washer and a screw, and all that kind of feeds straight through to each other and just screws together on the other side. Here you can see all those pieces together. They just kind of slide right through. This isn't tightened yet, but it gives you an idea of the general layout of all the bits. One thing is, it can be a little difficult to push this bolt all the way through just due to friction or what have you. I found an easy way to do it was to just get a little 8 millimeter socket with a little extension and just kind of set it on there, and then you can just kind of tap it through with a rubber mallet. It may damage threads or something. If you're really worried about that, probably don't do it that way, but it worked relatively easily for me. So it's all put together for the most part. So far, so good. As for the new brake light switch, which is this banjo bolt back here, you have to replace the old switch, which is like sliding contacts, and that is right behind this plate here. Super easy to get to. You just pop the seat off, and there's one plastic like body retaining screw under that, and then you just kind of pull this down and away from the bike, and it should just kind of come right out like that. So you see these little hooks. And then the one you're looking for is this one. So for the other side of the bike, it's pretty much the same process. You have 2 of the same size bolts holding it there. Then a couple of bits for the foot peg that are the same on the other side, which is a little plastic guard. So once that comes off, then you just worry about putting the new bracket on, which will go in just like that. The other spacer here to hold that away from the bike. The foot peg, it doesn't seem really connects in anywhere, it's just kind of held on. And then the top side will be replaced with a spacer and a like a nut that goes in there. So for the other side, I found it's pretty easy to just kind of hand tighten the bottom one here, so you can rotate this a little bit, which gives you a little better access to this up here. This uses a 14mm socket, just a little nut on the end, and once you get that off, this spacer kind of replaces it, and this comes in the kit. You can see it's got little notches on the side so that you can grip it with like a wrench or something and twist it on, but that just goes on the old bolt and has a washer that will fit through here and feed into that and hold it all up. A couple more quick tips for this side. I'm not entirely sure what size this would be in for like millimeters. I just gripped an adjustable wrench, but I wasn't wanting to scratch up the paint or anything, so I just put some foam double-sided tape on the inside of each side so that when I grip this it won't scratch it up or anything. Minor issue, but if you're worried about that, it's another way you can do it. So that's the other side done. All in all, it was pretty straightforward, much easier than the brake side. Not really too much to worry about. One handy part is that it seems like you don't need to reuse the nut on the end of this side, since this kind of takes the place of it. And it looks to be the same size as the one that went on the other side around there. So if that did get rounded off or broken or anything like that, you may have an extra you can use. Overall, it looks pretty great, I think. It's way more comfortable. I've sat on it a few times just to like test it out and make sure everything was steady, and it seems like it's pretty good. There's a tiny bit of play on that since there's no real bracket back here, but I mean, I don't really see that being too much of an issue. The paint might start scratching off with use. I feel like that would probably be the main problem, but overall it looks pretty great, and it feels way better than the mid controls that came stock.